Hi y'all, welcome to my channel, welcome to a new video, and it is time for another installment in this week in the list where I go over probably a lot of people's favorite video, the 15 worst albums I've reviewed in 2019. There has been a good amount of music, a good amount of good music this year, but I had to review, or at least I wanted to review, some pretty horrible albums. And for the most part, we saw a rise in bad albums, but not bad music. Like 2016 saw a rise of horrible singles, or 2015 saw a rise of terrible 90-minute albums, but I think this year we saw albums that were just horrible, not in any kind of particular fashion. No long 90-minute album or terrible compilation of horrible singles. No, I think we had a good run of bad albums this year. I'm going to talk about the first 5 a little quickly and then talk about the top 10 a little more. So let's get started. At number 15 we have one that's going to hurt me a little bit, Mike Posner with Keep Going. And it hurts me a little bit because I really liked his album earlier this year, A Real Good Kid, but this just seemed to be like the biggest fall from grace that I've seen this year. It's unfortunate, I really did enjoy that one, but this album really is just all over the place. It's a hodgepodge of terrible cliche trap music and bad rapping from Mike Posner. I just really find myself disappointed listening to this. At number 14 we have the most generic EDM artist in today's age, Marshmello, with his third installment in the Joytime series, Joytime 3. This is just another album. It's like a compilation, basically, of just boring trap EDM songs that make me so like curious to see if I would have liked this when I was like 12 or like 11 or like 13, because I feel like this is the kind of music that would appeal to that younger crowd. One of the reasons why Marshmello is a popular artist is because there are a lot of children on this website. Hi! And for the most part, I just don't find myself all that invested, all that intrigued with this album. I disliked it a lot, and you know, if it's not affecting anyone other than me, then I guess that's a plus for some reason. But yeah, for the most part, generic EDM with boring ass drops. Like, these drops are so predictable. Moving on from there, we have at number 13, we have the album from Nash titled We. This is a horrible hodgepodge. I'll use that word again. A horrible hodgepodge of terrible radio-friendly music, ranging from pop-punk to just syrupy, sappy ballads that just are bleh. The song I Hate You, I Love You, which was a single back in 2017, lands on this album, and it's like, why did it take you 2 years to make an album? I'm kind of curious. It sounds horrible, too. The song Broken Hearts Club, which was on my worst singles of the year list, was absolutely abhorrent. Also, the song T-Shirt sounds like a ripoff of Sweatshirt from the one Jacob Sartorius. Yeah, I mean, why would you have to rip that off? This album is terrible. This just kind of avoid this at all costs. Unless you are a Nash fan, then that's fine. That's fine. Moving on from there, at number 12, we have Logic with Supermarket. Now, many people might be wondering why this is kind of high on this list. Well, I find Supermarket to be a horrible project, but in a kind of naive way. You know, people kind of went into the album like, okay, well, it's Logic, it's a rock album, it's not gonna be all that good. I was going into this thing anticipating it to be horrible. I came out of it, I was like, yeah, that was bad, but was it as bad as a lot of people made it out to be? Look, there are some corny-ass lines and some cringy bars that Logic delivers on this album, but for the most part, it's supposed to be a soundtrack to a best-selling novel. That's about it. I didn't hate this as much as other people did, but I did dislike number 11, Gunna, Drip or Drown 2. All I have to say is that Gunna is continuing to be one of the most boring, most bland, most unoriginal trap rappers out there in today's age, and that's really it. This dude's just ripping off like Young Thug in like the most uninteresting way. No, this is not it. This is not it. Breaking our number 10 spot is an album from a hard rock band that you might all remember if you were growing up in the 2000s like yours truly did. And this song was everywhere on the radio. Crazy Bitch. Yes, that band, Buckcherry, with their album, Warpaint. This album is stuck in the 2000s. It sounds like basic hard rock, alternative rock that you would see plaguing the radio back in the day. The Head Like a Hole cover is bad enough, and it made it onto my worst singles of the year list, but this album as a whole is just so annoying, so... it just reeks of the 2000s in the stinkiest way. At number 9, this album really disappointed me. Because I didn't mind their previous album from this year. I'm talking about Weezer with Weezer, the Black Album. Oh my god, the songwriting on this is horrible. The guitar work on a lot of this is horrible. And Weezer used to be a pretty, good band. I mean, they kind of still are, they have their roots and whatnot. Blue Album's amazing, Pinkerton's amazing, I could say the White Album's a good album too. But for the most part, this thing is just so all over the place, not only stylistically, but lyrically. There are some okay highlights, that's not bad, but there are some really horrible lowlights as well, and to the point where I don't even want to go back to this thing. I don't even want to remember this came out this year, because it does feel kind of weird that this came out this year and not the time where Weezer was making really bad albums. At number 8, we have Tyga. Legendary. Boring, 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 boring. The end, point blank, period. Tyga is, again, the most boring trap artist there is. And, it might be Gunna, who's just unoriginal. Tyga has a sound, I guess. But for the most part, he doesn't execute his style even in a good way. I don't find this as horrible as Kyoto, but this is bad. Yeah, Legendary, not so. At number 7, we have the trio known as AJR, Neotheater. Boring, trite, cliche, manipulative songs that have the fakest of drops and the most synthetic of sounds. Neotheater is not that good of an album. However, I can give it a little compliment by saying it is a little better than The Click. Just a little bit. And I will be honest, when I was younger, I didn't mind the song I'm Ready, but after like 15 or 20 listens, it got a little annoying. But yeah, And what sucks is that the three guys don't have that bad of a production. Like, their production is clean, and their vocals are not bad, but it seems so, fake and synthetic, and it's just, trying to manipulate, and, it's so gross. It's just unfortunate, because these dudes, I will be honest, they have some talent behind them, but for the most part, it doesn't work out in their favor, and their albums are just annoying, bland, and boring, and for the most part, just, again, manipulative. I'll say that again, manipulative. At number 6, Hollywood Vampires with the album Rise. This is a supergroup. That's really all I have to say to realize that it's a bad album. But it doesn't matter who's in the group, it matters what's on the music and what's on the album, and the album isn't good. Obviously, it's number 6 on this list. And for the most part, I found myself to be very disgruntled with this album, because it's okay, there's some interesting acts in this group, but for the most part, they don't deliver on any promise that their previous bands did. This just seems like boring, cliche hard rock that, again, is living in its prime, like the 90s and the 80s and whatnot. It's just boring. Bloated as well. It's very bloated. At number 5, we have Lil Mozi, the XXL freshman of this year, with his album Certified Hitmaker. Unfortunately, this is anything but. This is some of the most annoying cloud rap and trap rap I have heard in an album this year. And, if Lil Mozi does not have the pipes or the lyrical capacity as some of his other contemporaries do, at least have some interesting production behind it. The production on here is so slow and washed out and sloshed that it's so uninteresting, so boring. And for the most part, I just find myself to be so annoyed by this album. It's just so unappetizing. It's so bland. It's so meh. Lil Mozi was just very uninteresting in the XXL cypher, freestyle, all of that, and he does not prove himself at all on this album. At number 4, this might surprise a lot of people for how high it placed, but it surprised me initially when I first heard it. It's Logic's Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Give it to Logic for having 2 placements on a worst albums list. High five, Logic. Good job. A round of applause. No, but seriously, I hate this album. I dislike this album more than Supermarket, and let me explain why. Going into Supermarket, I was like, okay, this doesn't sound like it's going to work out, but I'll give it a shot, and I expected it not to work out, and it didn't work out. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I wasn't giving him all the credit. I wasn't going to give him that, but he didn't even give us anything in return on that album soundtrack. But on Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Logic is, I would say, a capable rapper. He knows how to rap, and he knows how to spit some bars here and there. Corny-ass lines sometimes, but in 2013, he had some promise as being a XXL freshman, and then he just gives us Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which is an absolute horrid album that just makes me absolutely mad. How can you go from, what was it, Young Sinatra 4 or something, to this? I was going into this thinking, okay, well, a lot of people hate Supermarket, so I guess this has to be better than that album, but no, I honestly would much rather listen to Supermarket than Logic try to be a rapper on this album. This dude sounds like he is ripping off Logic himself. Logic would be the only person to rip himself off. Not only is he ripping himself off, he's obviously taking J. Cole and Kendrick, all of those influences, and just putting it on this album, and oh god, it's so horrible. It is a piss poor album that really makes me angry because Logic is a capable rapper. I will be honest about that. But for the most part, a lot of what's on this album is airheaded. It's just a lot of technical ability, but nothing is being said. Talk really fast, but you're not saying anything at all is literally the motto going into this album. I'm curious to what his confession is of a dangerous mind. I mean, it is a pretty cool title, I'm not going to deny that, but why waste it on something so trash and so horrible? And you know how horrible this is? Logic fans don't even like this. They care for Supermarket, they don't even like this album. Not as bad as number 3, however, I did get a good laugh out of this album. However, the laugh has waned on me a little bit. 93 Punks, self-titled. I still get a chuckle every time, because this album is just kind of like the punk version, or the pop-punk version, of Angelic to the Core, because Vic Mensa's hubris is so blinding that a project like this, just trying to be pop-punk and rap, fails spectacularly in such an amazing way that I can laugh at every song front to back. Camp America has somewhat of a groove to it, I won't deny that, but for the most part, this album is just horrific. It's horrible. It's good to laugh at. I listen to this thing sometimes just to get a good laugh out of it. And for the most part, it does reward, but the next album at number 2 does not get a laugh out of me, unfortunately. It's just very boring. Nav, with Bad Habits. Nav continues to sound like a robot on this album, on his own album. Why, dude, why? Like, at least you can be bad somewhere else. Actually, no, don't do that. I guess I will take back the comment I said in saying that I guess you can sound bad on your own album, just don't let anyone listen to it. This album is just so boring, it's boring, it's boring. That's really the only way I can describe it. Because the generic trap beats, and the boring ass flow, and the robotic voice that Nav has just makes him sound like a synthetic rapper, like a rapper that's like internet age, literally from the internet rapper right here. The point where it's basically robot. Just call Nav Robot, because this dude just does not sound like anything but. Number 1 takes the cake as the worst album of the year, but I would even go as far as saying this is the worst album of the decade. It's Nostalgia Critics' The Wall. You know, there are albums this year that I've looked at that a lot of the internet hates, And, you know, I went into them, I'm like, okay, you know, I see why they don't like it, but I feel like this is a little hyperbole. This is just hyperbole from the internet. And I was expecting to get that out of this album, but for the most part, this album gave me 14 tracks to hate, and a really horrible idea put onto an album, and an idea that Doug himself said was a love letter to Pink Floyd. How is this a love letter? How? This is like a love letter filled with anthrax, if you are, to be honest, really. Because, you know, when I open it, I'm just like, oh, and I'm dead automatically. Because this thing has nothing redeeming about it. Nothing about it. There's no ambition. There's no emotion. With bad albums, there might be spectacular failures, but this thing is just really boring. It's horrible, 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 horrible music that literally overtook the worst album chart of Rate Your Music. The worst album chart of Rate Your Music. It went to #1 at the bottom albums of all time. And I think that just proves my case, really, because this album is the worst album of the year, and I would argue the worst album of the decade, because there is effort that went into this. I feel like there was a lot of effort that went into this album. The renditions of Pink Floyd's The Wall and the guitar work, it's a pretty faithful rendition of the work. Good job, Rob Scallon. But Doug and the Corey Taylor feature and everything is horrible. It's just, oh my god, it's horrible. And you know what's funny is that I was thinking, you know, going into this entire channel, is there an album that has the chance at being the worst album of all time? And, you know, going into this thing, it was Angelic to the Core for the longest time. And people have kind of loved that album because it's a fantastic failure. But this thing is, this is the worst. This is the worst. It is the worst because I have heard Angelic to the Core, because I am a masochist. And listening to Nostalgia Critic's The Wall makes me really want to bang my head against a wall. This is nothing but terrible criticisms of The Wall. Like, these are so shallow, they're very narrow-minded criticisms if you're looking at The Wall from like a surface level. It's horrible. I really don't have to talk about it all that much. I ripped this album to shreds in my review if you want to go watch that. All of the video links to the reviews are in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below. Remember, this is only my opinion because music is subjective. And next installment of this week in list is the best albums of 2019. So stay tuned. I hope to see you there. Bye.